It is strategic turn 4, and House Corbin rolled for the reinforcements to arrive by jump ship, and unfortunately, Steel failed the roll. The player then placed the dice that failed the roll into prison, which led to some interesting propaganda. In strategic turn 3, the Corbin players withdrew from the Battle of Mesawalk when they realized they were taking a bad engagement and wanted to preserve their fighting force. Mesawalk fell to the Chupacabras, but the starport on the western side of the city was still in House Corbin's control. This was a vital line of logistics, because the House Corbin players used the starport to gain access to supplies to repair their damaged mechs. The Chupacabras, on the other hand, were cut off from all supply routes and could only do field repairs. The Corbin players also deployed the 5th Mech Company to the starport. In our game, we don't allow more than 2 companies to co-locate at one location, so the Armored Company moved to the other side of Swinestone in order to make room for the 5th Mech. This also put the Armored Company in position to harass the Chupacabras' 1st Mech Company if they decided to withdraw when House Corbin counterattacked Mesawalk. The 5th and 8th Company then force marched into battle with the Chupacabras' 1st Mech Company. However, there were still strategic actions left over on both sides, so a battle did not immediately take place. Despite the attack with the overwhelming forces at Mesawalk, the League forces, armed with the knowledge that House Corbin's reinforcements via jump ship had not yet arrived, were emboldened to continue their offense in South Azure. But before I tell you what happened next, I want to point out something. In our game, the spherical dropships that House Corbin and the League forces have can only land at starports, but can, with one action, carry an entire company, which is 3 lances. On the other hand, Aerodyne dropships we allow to land anywhere, but are limited to carry only 1 lance per drop. Also, our starports provide anti-space and basic anti-air weapons. This makes it nearly impossible for the enemy to drop on a city, especially on a starport district. The anti-space capability has an umbrella effect on the surrounding areas, which means no one could land here, nor there, and not even over there. Everywhere else is fair game. And that is what the Chupacabras started to do. First, the 7th Light Cav made a landing at Welter Keep. House Corbin's 2nd Armor immediately pulled back to Spellcomb to stop any Chupacabra shenanigans of yoinking the starport while House Corbin wasn't looking. At first, it made no sense to neither the Corbin players nor to myself what the League forces were doing. Why not concentrate their forces? Why divide them in hostile territory? But then the anti-air guns began to land at Welter Keep, and alarm bells went off for the Corbin players. The League forces are about to isolate South Azure, well, logistically isolate the city from space. Landing dropships at the starport will become too dangerous once anti-air guns are placed in either of these positions. Reinforcements would then have to walk to South Azure, and resupply and repairs would be cut off as long as the eastern side of the city was in the hands of the enemy. House Corbin had to make a snap decision, and as I saw it, they had about 3 options. Option A, send the 3rd Mech Company, which is on standby in the capital. If they sent those reinforcements via dropship, that would be it, because after that, nothing could safely deploy to the city via dropship until the anti-air battery was destroyed. And like I stated before, everything else would need to take the long walk to get there. Option B was to pill the 8th or the 5th Mech Company from the attack on Mesawalk, or break off the attack completely, then pivot their forces and attack the Chupacabras, taking up position to the west of South Azure. Or option C, don't send any more reinforcements to South Azure. The Chupacabras were already inching closer to the defense line in Landbridge. Surely this whole South Azure nonsense is a ruse from the real attack. I thought the House Corbin players would go for option B, or maybe even option C, but instead they went for option A. The 3rd Mech Company landed at Spellcomb Starport before the anti-guns could be activated and moved in position. Knowing that their units are now cut off, House Corbin also deployed a combined arms company to Heavycourt to be in the northern region of this new area of operations. This was a predicament for the League forces. House Corbin now had 4 companies operating in South Azure area, with another possible company en route from the north. Compared to the 2 companies of the League forces, this is not looking good for the League forces. The Corbin players knew they had superior numbers and didn't want to delay an attack. They wanted to hit immediately before the Chupacabras could reinforce their positions. They ordered the 3rd Mech Company and the 2nd Armored Company to attack the League forces at East Welter Keep. They left 1 lance of tanks behind just in case the League was trying to pull a fast one. The 7th Light Cav and the anti-air guns pulled back, But then the League players deployed their first clan binary from orbit. House Corbin began to consider to fall back to South Azure, but didn't want to spend the war chest points on purchasing more strategic actions. But the League forces wanted to take advantage of the delay in House Corbin's reinforcements and decided to all-out attack. The first binary, supported by the 7th Light Cavalry, then attacked Corbin's 3rd and 2nd in East Welter Keep. So now we have 2 battles we need to resolve. But as the last strategic action for the Chupacabras, she pushed an attack into Willaham, supported by aerospace bombers. So now we have 3 battles to fight out. Well, we'll resolve the battles in order they were declared. So this is the Second Battle of Mesawalk. Welcome back to Mesawalk District of South Azure City. The district is under the control of the League forces, and since the Chupacabras are logistically cut off from their forces, they have not been able to claim the salvage still scattered across the battlefield. This district is the location of the city's administrative buildings and a major on-off ramp for local motorized transportation. The players are still using the scenario King of the Hill on page 130 in Alpha Strikes Commander's Edition. The defenders, the Chupacabras, will try to prevent the attackers, House Corbin's forces, from taking and holding any of the control points for 3 consecutive turns. We set up 2 objectives on the map, one at the highway on-ramp and one in the admin plaza in between the 2 admin buildings. Any unit within 2 inches of these markers will be considered holding the objective. We also changed the rules slightly. Once the objective is held for 3 consecutive turns, the defender doesn't immediately lose the battle, but they must start to retreat from the battlefield. Surprisingly, none of the buildings nor the overpass took any damage from the last battle, so the buildings have a construction factor of 4 and the overpass has a construction factor of 3. The defending force is the Chupacabras' first company, which is comprised of 3 battle lances. The first lance is a heavy battle lance, which has a gargoyle, a stalker, an annihilator, and a night star. The gargoyle took substantial damage during the last battle, but the Chupacabras spent 3 strategic actions to do field repairs on the mech, so currently it only has 1 damage to its armor. The second battle lance is a medium battle lance, which has 2 grasshoppers and 2 centurions. The third battle lance is a light battle lance, comprised of a blackjack, a dasher, a wasp, and a panther. Unfortunately, the dasher was destroyed in the previous battle and has yet to be replaced. House Corbin is attacking with its 8th and 5th mech companies. The 8th Mech Company was responsible for the loss of the district in the previous battle and are anxiously awaiting to get payback. The mech warriors are still considered green, but all the mechs damaged in the previous battle were repaired. However, the destroyed mechs have yet to be replaced. The first lance, the light battle lance, has a wraith, a locust, a wasp, and a jenner. The locust unfortunately was destroyed in the previous battle. The second medium lance has 2 blackjacks, a cataphract, and a crusader. The third battle lance has an Orion, a vulture, and 2 hatchman mechs. Regrettably, the vulture and one of the hatchmen were destroyed in the previous battle and have not been replaced. The 8th Mech Company is supported by the 5th Mech Company, which will deploy in turn 2. The 5th Mech Company are all veterans from the Battle of Easterwich. However, the mechs that were destroyed in that battle have yet to be replaced since the mechs are inbound via jump ship reinforcements. The 5th Mech Company is comprised of 2 assault lances, red and blue. Both assault lances have a banshee, a centurion, a grasshopper, and a hatchman. Unfortunately, the red hatchman was destroyed at the Battle of Easterwich. The 5th Mech Company also has an understrength light striker lance, which has a blackjack and a wolfhound. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough blackjack miniatures, so the Phoenix Hawk is going to masquerade as a blackjack. Scandalous. Also, the Jenner and Panther did not survive the Battle of Easterwich and have been salvaged for spare parts in the glorious army of House Corbin. Alright, before we get into the battle, I want to once again thank all the Patreon supporters for their support, especially to our noble Ron W. Without you fine folks, these videos would not be possible. Alright, let's get into the Second Battle of Mesawalk. At the beginning of the battle, I quietly spoke with both sides about their strategy for the upcoming combat. House Corbin reiterated that he made sure his attack was supported, so he could bring his forces to bear even faster than the last battle. He has 2 companies, which has a total of 18 mechs for this battle. He then said that his plan was to punch through at the northern flank and hold the admin plaza control point. From that position, he plans to shoot anything that attempts to take the overpass control point, and if the opportunity presents itself, he'll sweep south to attempt to destroy the entire Chupacabra's force. As for the Chupacabra player, she simply said, "Phooey on the control points. There's no way I can hold nor prevent House Corbin from taking a control point." She has a point, she only has 1 company with a total of 11 mechs. She then explained that she plans to lose the battle, but wants to try to destroy as many of the Corbin mechs as she could. Then she went on and on and on about remembering the dice. House Corbin won the initiative, so the Chupacabras will move and shoot first. The Chupacabra player wasn't sure where House Corbin would deploy, and she didn't want to reveal where she would go with her heavy battle lance, so she opted to activate her light battle lance. Her Blackjack jumped to the top of the building, and her Wasp and the still severely damaged Panther moved in behind the building for cover. House Corbin, not too keen on advancing too far this turn, since he's waiting on the 5th company to arrive next turn, opted to activate 8th Company's first lance, and cautiously advanced into cover. The Chupacabras activate their medium battle lance, and maneuver in to take cover around that industrial complex. The Grasshoppers jump into position, and the Centurions advance into the road. It's obvious to the player that the Chupacabras are trying to get line of sight by getting on top of all the buildings. But House Corbin doesn't want to give that opportunity until a 5th company can arrive next turn. The House Corbin player activates their 8th company 3rd medium battle lance. Both mechs of the medium battle lance sprint into cover. Chupacabras can tell that House Corbin is massing towards the northern flank, so she activates her heavy battle lance to get into cover there. House Corbin, still not wanting to give any opportunity of line of sight to the Chupacabras, moved single file along this road, staying in defilade. On to the shooting phase. Surprise, surprise, none of the mechs have line of sight. The Chupacabras decide if House Corbin plans to hide behind all these buildings, then she will declare war on the buildings. All her mechs take aim at the admin building and the luxury apartment. The target number was very low, and they completely demolish the buildings. They no longer block line of sight, but the wreckage provides partial cover to any mechs hiding behind it. After witnessing the destruction of the buildings, House Corbin player simply cleared his throat and said, "Well, that complicates things." House Corbin won the initiative again, so the Chupacabras will move and shoot first. Satisfied with scratching her destructive itch, and wanting to see what House Corbin's 5th mech company would do, decided to activate her light battle lance. The Panther and Wasp stood still, but the Blackjack jumped to another building in order to have a higher TMM. It's now House Corbin's turn to move, and his 5th company has arrived. Considering the loss of the buildings, the House Corbin player decided to change his strategy. I gave him the, "Do you remember what happened last time you changed your strategy mid-game" look. He laughed and pointed out he's got 2 companies now, and the Chupacabra's light battle lance looks so vulnerable. So he decided to deploy his 5th mech company on the southern flank and attack there instead of his original North Hook attack. One thing to note, House Corbin now has 6 formations on the board, and the Chupacabras have 2 units that are still left to activate. This means House Corbin has 3 times as many units as the Chupacabras, and therefore must activate 3 units in order to have proportional movement. So the 3 units he decides to activate are the 3 lances of the 5th mech company. First, the light strikers. The Panther ground moves into cover, and the Pretender Blackjack jumps on top of the building. Next, House Corbin's red assault lance ground moves towards the avenue next to the downed Vulture. And finally, House Corbin activates their blue assault lance. The Hatchman and Centurion sprint into cover, and the Grasshopper and Banshee ground move to the edge of that avenue. Now that proportional movement is done, the Chupacabras can activate a unit. The Chupacabras realize their southern flank is now in grave danger, so she activates her medium battle lance. She really wants to help the Blackjack, but with that much firepower maneuvering against her southern flank, she knows it's a goner. So she ground moves her Centurions into cover and also jumps her Grasshopper into cover. It's now House Corbin's turn again to move, and they must move proportionally to the Chupacabras. House Corbin wants to avoid the Chupacabra's heavy battle lance and overwhelm the southern flank. so the 8th Company's Light Battle Lance maneuvers south. The Wraith jumps to the top of the building, and the Wasp and Jenner ground move into cover. Next, House Corbin activates the 8th Company's 3rd Lance and ground moves into cover and sets their sights on the Chupacabra Centurions. And finally, the 8th Company's 2nd Lance moves behind the 3rd Lance. It's now the Chupacabra's turn to move their last lance. The Heavy Battle Lance begins to move behind the Centurions to reinforce that position, but I can already see the doubt growing in the player for the Chupacabras. On to the shooting phase. The Chupacabras will shoot first. The 2 Centurions, the Gargoyle, and the Annihilator take aim at the Orion. It's medium range with partial cover, so the target number comes to an 8. Using 1 lucky point, they all hit, dealing 14 damage, which is enough to destroy it, though the Orion will be able to shoot back this turn. Next, the Stalker and Night Star shoot at the Hatchman in the 8th Company's 3rd Lance. It's at long range, so the target number was a 10, but despite lucky points, the Night Star and the Stalker both missed. Next up, the 2 Grasshoppers and the Blackjack open fire on the Wraith. Due to jumping and medium range, the target number comes to 10. Using lucky points, one of the Grasshopper is able to deal 3 damage to the Wraith's armor. Phew, lucky this mech was repaired since the last battle, or this guy would have been toast. Superior logistics of starports. This just goes to show why the starport is so essential to both sides during this campaign. House Corbin now returns fire. The entire 5th Company all fire at the Blackjack, who stood no chance under all that withering firepower, and it is destroyed. The building also took substantial damage as well, and it too was brought down. The Wraith shot back at the Blue Grasshopper. Due to poor skill and partial cover, the target number was a 12, and the Wraith missed. Next up, the remnants of the 8th Company all line up their sights on the Chupacabra's Red Centurion. The target number is 9. The Crusader and Blackjack miss, even after using lucky points. The Orion and Hatchetman both hit, dealing 7 damage, which caused structural damage. A roll of 10 for critical damage, and the fire control of the Centurion is damaged. And that brings turn 2 to a close. 3 buildings have been demolished, and each side has lost a mech. And it seems no one cares about the lonely control points. Let's see what turn 3 has in store for us. For turn 3, the Chupacabras won initiative. House Corbin will move and shoot first. However, we must do proportional movement. But now that House Corbin has 2 times more units to move compared to the Chupacabras, he will only have to move 2 units instead of 3. The House Corbin player decides to activate his Blue Assault Lance of his 5th Mech Company. The Hatchman jumps into cover, while the Centurion moves into cover at the overpass, seizing the objective. The Grasshopper jumps into cover on that building, while the Banshee moves into cover. Next, House Corbin player activates its 8th Mech Company's Light Battle Lance. He jumps the Wasp and Jenner forward, finding cover from the destroyed building. The damaged Wraith, trying to prevent line of sight from the Chupacabras, jumps into cover. The Chupacabras can now move a unit. She was lamenting being reckless with her Blackjack that led to it being destroyed. She could tell that her Light Battle Lance was about to be exposed, and her Panther still had all its armor destroyed from the last battle. At first she was going to jump towards the industrial complex to link up with her Medium Battle Lance, but realized her 2 mechs would still be in the open and would easily be picked off, so she decided to withdraw from the battlefield. It was House Corbin's turn to proportionally move 2 units again. He could either hold the control point for 3 turns or keep pressing the Chupacabras and see if he can smash them. Since he only needed to hold 1 control point to win, he decided to protect his forces and keep stacking his units on the overpass control point. He moved his Red Assault Lance forward and then activated his Light Striker Lance of the 5th Mech Company. The Pretender Blackjack jumped forward and the Panther ground moved to the objective. The Chupacabras can now move another unit. She confides in me that she's got to withdraw. Her Red Centurion is in bad shape and she's in enemy territory, so she won't be able to repair the critical damage she sustained in the last shooting phase. For a long time she thought about keeping a portion of her mechs still on the board to try to pick off 1 or 2 more of the House Corbin's mechs. The Wasp and Jenner just don't know how close they came to getting shot up. But ultimately, the prize of destroying a Wasp or a Jenner wasn't worth the risk of taking structural or critical damage to her mechs in hostile territory. so she spent the rest of the movement turns withdrawing her medium and heavy battle lance. House Corbin wins the battle and reclaims the district of Mesawalk, restoring order to the city of South Azure. They lost one mech and took some damage, but as long as the starport remains open and not blockaded, repairs and resupply will come easily to House Corbin. The Chupacabras lost one mech and another was critically damaged, which cannot be repaired in the field. The first company is still in hostile territory with its closest ally on the far side of the city, which is also locked in battle. The fate of that battle will be resolved in the next battle report. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this battle report. We'll see you at the next one.